Okay, Tom, so let's start with your background, naval intelligence.
Correct. Naval Intelligence Officer since 1999 and active until 2007. Number of tours overseas, including the Arabian Gulf, flying with a squadron from the Harry S. Truman. Then in Washington with the Office of Naval Intelligence, a tour in Afghanistan, and then the White House Situation Room was my final active tour.
And just explain, with the limits you have on what you can talk about, what that is. You're saying it's actually rooms.
Sure. The White House Situation Room, it was started as basically a small room by President Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs. By the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, it had blossomed into a real operations center, a watch center for the president. The main goal of the White House Situation Room is to take all of the information produced by our government, our intelligence agencies, law enforcement, and then push it to the president and know what he wants to see, make sure his national security team and the White House staff are informed. So they're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, there are teams there making sure the president and his staff are kept informed.
And your role as senior duty officer, what does that mean?
You manage a watch team which is made up of both military and civilian from all over our government and all of our services. And you make sure that the flow of information coming in is pushed up to the president in a timely manner. And that doesn't cease at water's edge, whether he's overseas, in another time zone, Camp David, Air Force One, all that information is pushed to the president wherever he is. It's the job of the watch team to ensure they're looking out for the things we know the president and his team need, and that we're getting it to them in a timely fashion.
Is it always a crisis situation, or is it, it's not for routine updates, but not necessarily just for crisis, right? Somewhere in the middle?
It's a daily routine of providing information. Unfortunately, post 9/11, it's very much a crisis center at times. Whether in my time there it was the subway bombings in London, or the Israel conflict with Lebanon, those things have a way of sucking the air out of the room, and it becomes then triage and crisis, and making sure the president and his team know what is going on, have all the information at the disposal of our government.
How tense does it get in there?
Well, fortunately, we're well trained. They don't send military officers there or civilians if you can't handle a little pressure. That's probably the wrong place to be. Sometimes it's tense, but when you had a good leader, and in my case, I was privileged to work for President Bush and his national security advisor, Stephen Hadley. They were absolutely singularly focused on ensuring that the mission got done, but also that the staff, the people, were taken care of. So there were never any moments where you didn't feel like you had a steady hand at the tiller.
When you look at that photo that we've now all become used to seeing there with the president, the vice president, and Secretary of State, what goes through your mind?
Well, there have been several situations where the Situation Room is used by senior cabinet members, and it brings back some memories of some pretty tense times since my time at the White House. But it also reassures me that regardless of who our president is or what party they're from, that we have the kind of dedicated professionals and dedicated elected officials to serve. There's a tendency to think that somehow in these situations, Jack Ryan or Jack Bauer or Indiana Jones swings into the room and says, "I have it," but it's just good people who've been elected or appointed working hard who get us through these problems and get us to these successes.
So you would be in that room just, briefing the president yourself,
Sometimes it would normally be a senior member of his national security team. We would be providing late-breaking details and making sure that it was all included. We would make sure that whoever was in the Situation Room, be it the president or a cabinet secretary, that they had the latest information to make decisions from. And that's the goal, is to ensure your decision makers have the best possible information available to the United States.
And talk about, you mentioned it was redesigned, like physically redesigned?
Yes, a team of us who arrived there in 2005 were privileged to have the opportunity to participate in the redesign. After 9/11, President Bush was frustrated with the technology, which had been dated, so he ordered a redesign and a reconstruction of the Situation Room. I had the privilege of being the last senior duty officer to serve in the old modeled sit room, and then the new, I was the first one to be able to stand watch there. It's a state-of-the-art center now. It provides the president and his team with not only the physical space, but also the technological capabilities to be able to do the kinds of things you saw in those photos.
So, you know, I don't know how much you can speak to this or whatever, but our understanding is that they were literally watching the raid as it was unfolding?
That's my understanding from the press reports as well. Again, I've been back on Long Island now for a good bit of time, so I'm a bit out of the loop, but I imagine that they were participating actively in ensuring that the activities were monitored and that the president was able to get the best information, which is the whole point of having the sit room there. Make sure he has that information available to him.
Right. Pardon me. Let's talk about the Navy SEALs. You were deployed there last year? Was it as recently as last year?
Yeah, in 2010, I was part of the presidential transition team from the Bush administration to President Obama's administration. And it was significant because it was the first wartime transition between presidents since Eisenhower Truman. I was asked to stay on. The Obama administration concurred and had me stay on. And shortly after inauguration, I was remobilized to active duty, trained with the SEALs as an intelligence officer and deployed with them. And we spent the better part of 2010 in Afghanistan.
And they're training for a wide variety of missions, I imagine.
Sure, they are exquisite warriors. They are extremely well trained. SEAL, of course, stands for sea, air, and land. And people sometimes forget the land part of that they are very capable men. It was a privilege to serve with them and support them in a variety of roles.
What were your thoughts as soon as you heard about bin Laden?
There's a tremendous amount of pride. There's a tremendous amount of relief, but that's tempered with a great deal of caution in that our enemy and those of us who have been out there and been face to face with them know that they are not terribly well grounded or secure in their beliefs. So this will rattle them, and they will seek to express their viability in no uncertain terms. And so that could be our interests here in the United States or our interests abroad. I think we have to be very cautious at this time because they're probably seeking to show that they're still out there.
Interesting. You've dealt and met and talked with so many Navy SEAL members. The ones who were on that actual raid, what do you think is going through their mind?
I think they're thinking about their brothers who they lost in Afghanistan and Iraq. I think that was probably, I mean, I can't put words in their mouth, but having lived with some of these gentlemen, that was probably the main thing going through their head, that so many people who are participated in building the Naval Special Warfare community or the intelligence community, so many didn't make it home, and they are really the people we should be thinking about now because they contributed to this success.
Okay, very good. Anything else you want to get in there? Or, I mean, you mentioned on the phone about the intelligence. You know, intelligence like this, it's just a very painstaking process.
Right. It's this kind of an operation and this kind of an intelligence success is based on, first of all, the commitment that President Bush demonstrated in building up the intelligence community and naval special warfare in our armed forces after 9/11. We built a robust force, both with professionals who are dedicated to this mission, and he put the money and the training behind it. So we now matured that force to the point where these kinds of successes are possible. It takes an awful lot of work. There's a lot of sacrifice made by the families of our servicemen and women and our intelligence professionals, and we couldn't do it without our families, obviously.
So we're hearing that what are we hearing, maybe June or August or so, that we got information that might be where bin Laden was living. And that time span of, 8 months, whatever it is, that's not terribly long. You would
It's
think, right?
Doug, it's really it can be a very long process. It's very much like a puzzle and trying to put together pieces. Sometimes the smallest nugget of information that you get in 2002 or 2003, at the time it doesn't mean anything really to you. But then as time progresses and your force matures and you get a better sense of the picture, that little nugget then becomes a silver bullet. So it's very much a building process, and anybody in the intelligence business certainly understands that.
Okay.